Hello, I'm going to try out a few things really fast. I'm going to go through a loop line by line. I'm going to show reading numbers into R, and I'm going to show a bootstrap. So first of all, how to read some numbers into R. There's a few ways. You can just put some values directly in like that using the function C. See what that does? The length of that is 8. By the way, anytime I want to store something, I just create a new variable name. There's n is 8 long. There's another thing that's kind of neat. I could edit it. This creates a little spreadsheet where I can change the values. And then when I'm done, I just hit that and say save. And then if I look at Y, look, it's the thing that's been edited now. So that's another thing I could do. I could use the editor to fix things in X, or there's another command that's pretty handy. Let's try another one called scan. That also lets us write things in. You just put numbers. This is really good for if you're cutting and pasting values in. You just hit return. And by the way, you could do multiple lines as long as you keep having data on each line. But as soon as you get a blank line in return, it stops and stores all your data. Okay, so let's do the one with the X, and we'll use that. And finally, for creating like a large, long vector just full of NAs so that I can put values in it as a bootstrap or something, I can use the rep command, which that means I'm going to take the NA value 100 times and stick it in store. No. By the way, if I want to look at a certain value, like the first thing is na, there's the first item in there. And if I want to put something, change something, I could make the first item be 100. And then now I've made 100. So with all that, that's actually almost enough. Now, how does a loop work? Well, a loop's pretty simple. You always have a for, then you put any variable. You have to make up a variable name for your counter. And then the simplest one is you say some length of numbers, like 1 through 5. Okay, I'll go down there. Then you put whatever you want to happen in the loop. So for instance, I'll print that value 5. Watch this. When I do that, boom, it looped 5 times. As it looped, it did 1 through 5. So essentially, I just do however many loops I want, and I do my calculation here. Now with a bootstrap, what I will do is I take my original sample, I'll sample from it the same size sample in here, and then calculate my statistic, whatever it is, and store it. So let's do that. Now I'm doing 1 to 100 because that's how long I made that initial vector, that store. So now, first thing I do is I'm going to take a resampled sample. So I sample from my data the same size. Okay. In that case, I should have just said 8, size equal 8, but it's whatever size X is. And then I'm going to do replace equals true, because it has to be sampling with replacement. At that step, it creates that a resampled sample. And then I create my statistic from it. So I'll say store of I, in the ith spot in store. What's a good statistic? Mean, standard deviation, variance, who knows? How about median? I'm just going to do a mean. No, I'll do a median. Medians are boring. Mean, how about a mean? I'll take a mean of my resampled. So it's going to calculate the mean, store it, and you know what? That's it. That's it. I just close the loop. And what it does is it does this 100 times, and look, if I look at store, now it's all full of values. Now, in theory, I could just sort these and count from the bottom, like middle 95%. Well, that means two and a half values from each side. So, you know, somewhere around here, it's going to be between 4 and 6.125 roughly is going to be my confidence interval, because it's the middle 95% of the values. But to make life easier, I can use the command quantile. What that does is it finds the value with a for instance, 2.5% below it. 4.5. It kind of interpolates the value here. Okay. And because there's not exactly 2.5% of the data anywhere. And how about 975 below it? That's the upper 2.5%. Yeah, that's a 6.125. Or I could do it in one shot. I can say store there. That'll do both of them. So there's my bootstrap confidence interval. Now for the last thing, somebody asked about things like R binomial simulators. So if you have a distribution, normal, binomial, or so on, you can always say R in that distribution if you can figure out what it is. So R binom. And it'll give you a help file. That question mark, if you have any sort of R function and put a question mark or object, it's going to give you a help file. So here we go. Gives us 4 choices. D binom gives us the probability of X happening if this is the N and P of the parameters of our binomial. So this is going to give the exact probable chance of getting exactly X. P binomial is giving you the probability of getting up to and including the value Q. So here if I put 4, it would give me the probability of getting exactly 4. Here it would give me the probability of up to 4 and including 4. Q binomial is weird. If I said like 30%, 0.3, it would give the value that there's a 30% chance of being below the value. Okay, so that's a quantile. And finally, this is the most useful one. I find P binomial and R binomial the most useful. R binomial is a simulator. You describe your binomial and say how many you want, and it simulates it. Watch this. I'll do that one. Fine. I'm going to simulate it one time. I'm going to simulate 10 coin flips with probability equal to 1/2. Oh, I tossed my coin 10 times. I got 3 heads. I have 4 heads. I got 6 heads. I have 3 heads. I have 4 heads. I have 7 heads. If I want to do 100 of these processes, 100 times I will toss a coin 10 times each and write down the number of heads. There's that simulation. Let's say I can see something like, let's do D binom. I can say, what's the probability of getting 0 heads if I flip a coin 10 times with probability equal 0.5? Okay, how about the probability of exactly 1 head, probability of exactly 2 heads, and so on. If I want to know the probability up to and including, I do P binom. So this would be the probability of getting up to and including 2 heads, which actually is the probability of getting none, 1, and 2. So if I added these up, I would get that. Is that going to be it for me? I think so. Okay, so I'll stop at this point. By the way, in general, anytime I do ls, I can see what variables I've just created and are being stored. Oh my gosh, I made a lot of them, didn't I? If I want to get rid of them and clean it out, by the way, I do remove equal ls. That'll actually clean it completely out. So now I have nothing stored. If I say Q, that allows me to quit. By the way, in R Markdown, you don't have to say Q because you do the same exact thing, but you do it between the 3 tick marks, right? But if in the regular R console, if I do Q, that's going to let me sign out. It does something really interesting here. If I say save, then all the variables I just created would be saved. Of course, I just erased them, so that's not so good. If I say don't save, next time I come on, I will not have added new stuff, so I can get to start all over. So I'll just say don't save. All right, and that's the end. Bye.